Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this next in the series of Busting Brexit Myths, I'd like to focus on the fallacy that the EU would be forced to give the UK a great deal because of the German car manufacturing industry. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, as with all Brexit myths, they've been allowed to propagate because people who know nothing tell other people who know nothing a thing. And then those people go, oh, I didn't know that. And then they pass it on and tell other people who know nothing the same thing. At no point do these people think of checking a few facts out. And this particular myth was that the UK was such an important market for the massive German car manufacturing sector, especially in the wake of the diesel scandal, that Germany would force the EU to give the UK lots of concessions if the British government took a hard line. And there were three areas of ignorance that fed this particular myth, none of which were inherently stupid as such, as you wouldn't expect a general member of the public to have the knowledge necessary to spot the flaws in the argument, but checking a few facts would have actually revealed them. The first one was, the first area of ignorance really is just in how the EU works. This is a common theme. Everyone assumes that because Germany is the most powerful member of the EU, that it gets its way all the time. This is also what fed the myth about the EU forcing us to do things. Even British ministers apparently didn't know any better. David Davis, who was the first Brexit secretary, as soon as we triggered Article 50, we were about to get the negotiations underway for the withdrawal, was all ready to go to Berlin for these talks because he thought it was Germany calling the shots, and he was absolutely, honestly amazed when someone pointed out, actually, you should be heading to Belgium. But as we've seen from the withdrawal negotiations over the past few years, all member states get a say in major treaties. In fact, when it comes to major treaties like this, they don't just get a say. If they're not happy with it, it's not going ahead. A single member state saying no to the proposals scuppers the whole thing. This is why some Conservative MPs were trying to lobby the Polish government to veto any request for an extension because they know that the EU doesn't force things on member states like this. Decisions of this sort are always unanimous or they do not go ahead. So even if the German car manufacturers did want the EU to give concessions to the UK for fear of the effect of their own industry, and were able to put enough pressure on the German government, other member states would have gone, no. And that would have been that. The second fallacy was in failing to understand that the concessions being sought would fatally damage the single market's integrity. This is something that actually requires a great deal of detailed knowledge of international trade and treaties, which, you know, most of us do not have. And so what we have to do is rely upon those who do have that knowledge. In other words, people who've drawn up such treaty and negotiated them for guidance here. But of course, this is where Michael goes saying that people are sick of experts, knackers it. Somehow people are more inclined to believe a politician over industry experts. Now, although the fallacy itself, as I say, is not a stupid one, you cannot expect people to understand how international trade agreements and treaties work. Of course not. However, if you are consciously taking your lessons in international trade from a politician, I would say that's pretty dumb. I would say. But time has busted this myth because it's several years later. It isn't a matter of debate amongst those who have no experience of treaties. The German car manufacturers have not lent on the German government, and the German government have not argued that the UK should have unreasonable concessions. In fact, the line has been firmly that the single market is more important than trade with the UK. Yes, a loss of trade with the UK is damaging, but if they have to choose between the UK and the world, and Britain is forcing that choice upon them, then the world wins. 3, finally, people overestimating the importance of the UK market itself for German cars. Now, yes, as I said, it's a sizable chunk of the market. If all of a sudden German car manufacturers were not able to sell their cars competitively in the UK, that would hit the industry. German cars are very popular in the UK because they work. You know, they have a decent chance of making it to the end of the journey without breaking down. We like that. But compared to other markets, it's pretty small. An explanatory image has been bouncing around social media recently in a way that is pretty easy to understand. Here it is. It shows a scale highlighting just how small the UK market is compared to not only their own car manufacturing in general, but their export market as a whole. It's minuscule. The idea that this tiny little doggy was going to be able to yap loud enough to get the German government to put pressure on the EU, and then the EU heed that, is a little bit ridiculous. And this was the easiest fact to check. Yes, no one is gone. Not no one. Most of us are not going to have any idea of actually how large the market is for German cars in the UK compared to German cars across the world. Of course we don't. We have to look it up. But we can look it up very, very easily. Simple case of looking up how many cars are produced by German manufacturers, how many are sold in the UK. Anyone could have done that really easily. But it's this whole British exceptionalism that allowed people in this country to think that we're really important without actually checking the facts. So important that being a key member of the largest trading bloc in the world was somehow a hindrance to our own trade. It was holding us back being part of the largest trading bloc in the world. Of course it made sense that Germany would be scared stiff of having trade barriers with the UK. I mean, it's all so obvious, isn't it? So there we are. Another lie that was used to allay people's fears that Brexit might lead to having no trade arrangements, because that was the thing. If it had been discussed before the referendum, would have killed Brexit off at the start. If people had thought that Brexit would have led to having no trade deal with the EU. So there were lots of these things to allay people's fears. And here we are now with those people saying, of course we have to have no deal with the EU. So there we are, another myth well and truly busted. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.